Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Rising of Buddhist Voice. It's a great honor to be here with you today. I'm Nancy, the founder of International Buddha Dharma Society for Cosmic Law in America. Today is April 16th. The world is still in pandemic and is changing very fast. It's the right time to return to ourselves. Actually, it's always the right time to return. In the last few talks, I have been talking about Chan and Jing, and today I'm going to talk about me. You must have been puzzled by these words. What are these words? What do they mean? Why are they important? Let me explain to you further today. Chan is pinyin of the Chinese word Chan. Pinyin means how to spell, how to pronounce the Chinese word. It's from the Sanskrit word dhyana. The calligraphy of Chan is shown in many temples and homes. People like it. It's been a symbol of Buddhism. It's well known in Western world as Zen. As stated before, I insisted the word Chan because Zen evolved from the Chinese word Chan when it was brought into Japan, and its meaning may have been changed over time. Chan Buddhism started from the moment the Buddha holding the lotus flower and showing it to the assembly without saying one word. Chan cannot be spoken. It can only be understood, but not expressed. Chan is nothing, but also is everything. The blowing wind is Chan. The flowing water is Chan. The still mountains are Chan. The moving sun and moon are Chan. The music you are listening to is Chan. Now let's take a look at the word Jing. It seems that I did not talk about the word Jing, though I was indeed talking about Jing. I was talking about Pure Land, pure mind, without using the word Jing. Jing is pinyin of the Chinese word Jing, and it means pureness. Then what about me? Me is also pinyin of the Chinese word mi. As you know, in Buddhism, there are many different denominations. Chan Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, Mi Buddhism, and so on. People don't say Mi Buddhism. Instead, people say esoteric Buddhism. But esoteric Buddhism is not me in this talk. Why? Let's trace the source of esoteric Buddhism so you can understand. Esoteric Buddhism, it has different names. Also, esoteric religion, or Tantra, or Tantric Buddhism, or Vajrayana. It's one of the branches of Mahayana Buddhism. When I say esoteric Buddhism or Vajrayana, I'm saying the esoteric Buddhism in Tibet, in China, in the Western world. Not the Shingon Buddhism in Japan. Shingon Buddhism is also esoteric Buddhism, but it has a different source. Vajrayana is most well known in China and in the Western world. It was brought to Tibet by two people from India. Vajrayana propagation in Tibet was first obstructed by its local primitive religion, Ben religion. The primitive Ben had the characteristics of shaman. Like many other primitive religions, it worships various kinds of creatures. People would divine, pray, curse, conjure, sacrifice, and they had many kinds of rituals. So the current Vajrayana is composed of Tantra teaching of Hinduism, Brahminism, Shaman of Shaktism, and Tibet local primitive religion, Ben religion, and some Buddhism theory. After knowing the history of Vajrayana, you understand that it's not the proper Dharma proclaimed by Shakyamuni Buddha. Vajrayana advocates that greed and desire is the aid for practicing, and through secret rituals, supernatural powers, and meditation, the cultivators can attain the emptiness and will get enlightened eventually. However, in these practicing methods, many are against what the Buddha taught and not found in sutras. Many modern cultivators turn to Vajrayana. Why? Because Vajrayana is mysterious, is easy, is a shortcut. It does not need cultivators to hold all the complicated precepts, and the cultivators can release their desires and have supernatural powers. It's tempting, right? But before you go far and deep, ask these questions. Does this Dharma door request disciples to hold precepts? Does this Dharma door request disciples to delve into the sutras? If no, then leave as soon as possible. There's no shortcut in cultivation. Nowadays, you hear many living Buddhas. Don't believe easily. Too many people lost their wealth. Too many people lost their Dharma body and wisdom life, and too many people could not extract themselves out from demon's hand. Sakyamuni Buddha is our original Buddha, our original teacher. Precepts and sutras are our teacher. It's impossible to become Buddha while enjoying worldly pleasure without holding precepts. It's just impossible. Learn from Sakyamuni Buddha. Learn from Sakyamuni Buddha. Worship Sakyamuni Buddha. Let's get back to Chanjing Me now. So what is me? Let's take a look at some pictures. I'm just showing you some pictures of Chan. See, this is Chan. Or you go to your Google and you say it's very slow. And when you look at these pictures, they're peaceful, quiet, and pure. So what is me? Me is the meeting of your heart with these pictures, with these scenes. It's the resonating of your heart with these pictures, with these scenes. It's the understanding of the scenes. These are me. So you know, me is beyond our thoughts and cannot be expressed. That's why it's called me. Me is not secret methods in esoteric Buddhism. It's something beyond the words. Does this make sense to you? So from these pictures, you see Chen, Jing, me, correct? Chen, Jing, me originate from your wonderful true heart, from your Buddha nature, from your self nature, from the Tathagata in your heart. Chen, Jing, me originates from the Buddha heart, from your nature ocean, from the original source of the universe. Chen, Jing, me originates from the Bodhi tree, from the Saranas, from the vulture peak, where the Buddha speaking Dharma. Chen, Jing, me originates from becoming enlightened when seeing the bright shooting star, from smiling when seeing the Buddha holding the flower, from demonstrating the Dharma through the 8 characteristic events, which I will talk about later in the future. If we don't know Chen, Jing, me, we will not get out of the cycle of birth and death. Knowing Chen, Jing, me is to see our self-nature. In this Dharma ending period, our teacher is the sutras, our teacher is the precepts. Here is a verse to you. It's a well-known verse. The Buddha is on the vulture peak, speaking Dharma, and the vulture peak is just in your heart. Everyone have vulture peak stupa in the heart, and so all have the chance to cultivate under it. That's just telling you, don't go outside to search for the Buddha. Most time, we don't see Chen, Jing, me, while Buddhas are one with Chen, Jing, me. What we see is reflection of our heart. Why? Here's an analogy. A blind person wants to know what the sun looks like. If you tell him that the sun is round, he will think that the sun is like a round plate. If you tell him that the sun is hot, he will think that the sun is like fire. The only way to know the sun is to cure the eyes, so the blind person can see the sun himself. All the living beings are this blind person. When we try to explain Chen, Jing, me, it will be like describing the sun to the blind person. Our brain always thinks, while our heart has no logic, no concept, and no reasoning. Be righteous, be honest, be kind, and be pure. To cure our eyes means to remove our greed, remove our anger, and remove our stupidity. There's no Dharma outside, and this is the greatest me. Chen, Jing, me are one. Chen, Jing, me cannot be spoken. Those spoken must not be Chen, Jing, me. We see living beings and Buddhas, but living beings and Buddhas are one. We see inside and outside, but inside and outside are one. We see moving and non-moving, but there isn't moving or non-moving. These are just our discrimination, false thoughts, and attachment. Amitabha, I'm honored to be here with you today. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Stay safe. Bye.